Today, we had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Amanda Hanson, a clinical psychologist, speaker, and author. Her mission is to redefine the paradigm of womanhood by merging clinical psychology and ancient holistic practices. With this work, she helps women reclaim their power to have a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment.
In this conversation, we talk about embracing aging, the effects of living in a patriarchal society as a woman, and why our culture has an obsession with youth. We also talk about the importance of speaking your truth, even if it means having those uncomfortable conversations, and what it means to be emotionally hygienic. We loved Dr. Hanson's magnetic energy and left this conversation with a lot to reflect on. Enjoy this powerful episode.
Hello, Dr. Amanda Hanson. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have a conversation with you both.
So, for anyone listening who isn't already familiar with your work, how would you describe what you do?
I'm a clinical psychologist by trade, but I have really taken a lot of philosophies that I use in my life, practices and rituals, and more sacredness that I use in my daily living to make my life more beautiful and magical that has nothing to do with what the outside world is telling me will be helpful as a woman. So I take clinical psychology and I take all of these practices, I've infused them together and created my own art of womanhood. And that is what I teach my clients.
I love that. How would you describe the art of womanhood? Like, what does that mean to you?
It means not paying attention to the patriarchal prescription that is given for women about how to go about living. So since the patriarchy's been around for thousands of years, it was written and constructed by men for the benefit of men. So by those terms, if we follow those directions, we are a support character in most places and spaces, whether it's business, relationship, extended family, community. A woman is typically a support system. And by the terms by which I live my life, I am the main character of my life. And that does not mean I'm a selfish woman. That doesn't mean I don't pour into my family, my community, and my clients, but it means I put myself at the center first and foremost. I infuse from there, and only from there do I overflow and effervesce to everybody else. And I'm actually better in all ways for all people when I do that. And we hear like, oh, you got to fill your cup up first. You got to put on your oxygen mask before you can put on someone else's. But nobody knows what that actually looks like. And most people aren't brave enough to do it, because to do it will mean to defy most of the patriarchal standards for women.
Wow. What is your background? How did you get to this point? What led you to this understanding within yourself?
Again, like I said, I'm a clinical psychologist for over 25 years. So I started working on my PhD when I was in my 20s, early 20s, and going to all of my courses, graduating with my doctorate, getting right into private practice, and doing what I was taught to do, not yet realizing I was taught through the patriarchal lens. All the theories that I learned, everything, 99% of it was written by men. And so I'm in there doing this work and thinking, well, there's like slight changes here and there, but I don't feel like we're getting really to the core of great change. Something feels different here. When I was going through things in my own life, I started to use a lot of really primal movement and sounds. And I didn't even connect with that until I had my first baby. And in birth, something awakened inside of me. I had natural childbirths, and I connected to a warrior part of me that had an ancestral coding that got activated. And so that's when I looked over my shoulder and thought, oh my gosh, everything I've been telling these women was a bunch of cockamamie bullshit. That's not what they needed to do. They need to get on the floor and like howl. And we need to like move our hips, and we need to reclaim, and we need to celebrate our bleeding. And it's so much different than what they told me in grad school. So I started putting all of this work together, and bit by bit, as I got freer in my own life, I got braver to take my clients by the hand and help them get freer. And the changes were happening so rapidly, it was blowing my mind. Women after 20 years of being on antidepressants, getting off of them, women who had not had wet panties in 15 years, all of a sudden feeling so turned on for life again because they were percolating and coming back alive from the inside in a way that is not taught in our prescriptive world.
How did this perspective shift change your own life in these beginning stages? I know you said you had just had a baby, but I'm curious what that looked like.
It made me realize that I had been looking outside of myself and sourcing for the answers to my life everywhere else but inside of me.
Mhm.
So as soon as I shifted that, I and truly something happened in that first birth where there was no more consulting, looking, getting approval. It was just a knowing that didn't even have words to it. It was deeply grounded like an old oak tree. So I just trusted. And I started making really huge and very radical, by what the world would say is considered radical, decisions about my life, my children's lives, our family's lives, and my family's life. And everything got more beautiful. Everything. My business changed, my body changed, my sex life changed, my relationship with my kids was unlike anything I'd seen friends doing. And I was communing with every phase of my life through intuition. And from physical illness, like I couldn't tell you the last time I've been on antibiotics, maybe 20 some years. Same with all of my kids, all the way down to mental health issues, right? To making decisions that were sourced from deeply within, because the physical body and the mental body are all working together, the spiritual body. So I think part of why I'm not ever needing to get onto antibiotics is also in part because of this work I do. I don't let myself get contaminated with toxins, not just in food and in the environment, but in my thoughts, in when I feel rage, when I feel disenfranchised, when I feel wronged, I let myself feel it, and I have practices to express it and release it so it doesn't contaminate me.
Can you speak more on that? Like what that process looks like? Maybe you're having a feeling come up. Like, what do you do in that moment to kind of work through that?
Yeah, it depends in that moment. Like if I'm in the middle of coaching a client or I'm in the middle of a situation with a group of people, I typically name it right then and there. I will name it. I don't make it about anybody else. So I had a situation a couple of weeks ago with my mom and my mother-in-law, and I named the moment that was happening. I didn't make them wrong for it as much as I named the truth of it. Now they can decide to have felt made wronged if they wanted to. That's up to them. But I presenced something that needed to be discussed. So as a woman who feels so convicted, I don't swallow too much. Most things get presenced and tabled, like, let's handle this. If it's something that can't be handled in the immediate, or if it's a global situation, like some of the things we see happening in the world right now and the rage I feel for it, I have rage release practices that I take myself through, because to be emotionally hygienic, we have to make sure, just like we brush our teeth and floss, scrape our tongues, we have to do emotional hygienic practices, very often, to keep ourselves from being sick, filled with energy that's going to give us cancer.
Emotionally hygienic. I just want to call that out because I love that so much. And that's such a good descriptor for what it is, because that's so true. It's like when you hold on to those things, we don't understand how much they just sit inside of us and what they end up turning into. So I love that.
I'm curious how you got to the point of being able to say how you're feeling in a situation like that. Because I know for so many women and men, but we feel like, oh, it's not worth it, or I'm scared to bring it up. Did you always get to that place of being like, I'm going to say this? Or was that something you had to work through to get to that place where you're like you said, it's not, they can decide how they want to feel about the situation, but I need to speak my truth and share how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I think I've always been pretty rebellious in that way and pretty bold. And I don't feel like it serves anybody for me to tiptoe around or to pretend like something doesn't bother me. It doesn't serve any of the relationships that I'm in. We're not actually building a bridge towards intimacy. I'm faking, I'm pretending, I'm acting, and I'm not here to be a puppet in anyone's performance. I'm here to speak my truth. And if it doesn't align with you, that's okay. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It just means we're not energetically matched. Either we have a bigger conversation to have about how we continue forward, or if we continue forward. But why do we stuff things down, act like they don't bother us, and then scratch our heads and wonder why we don't feel connected to the person? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had any relationships or people where it didn't feel aligned after you started showing up as your like truest, fullest self?
Yes, most.
Yeah.
Most
Mm.
relationships did not align.
And what was that experience like? Were you able to just kind of move through it gracefully, or was there a level of
It was
grief going through it?
for me, no, because the only grief was that it, maybe I betrayed myself for a while before being that truthful.
Yeah.
It felt so cleansing, so freeing. And with every single person, I still care so much for them and bless everything and want nothing but all the most wonderful things for them. And many of them I keep in touch with, like, in small ways around holidays, and I love them. I only have so many hours in a day and I only have so much bandwidth. So I want it to be to a couple of core legendary loves of my lifetime. It doesn't I'm not going for cheap likes.
Yeah.
Well, and when you're showing up as yourself and people, really see you and love you for that, I mean, that relationship is only going to get stronger over time. So those relationships that you do have left are going to be the best of the best.
Yes. And isn't that what we really want in this lifetime? And so I never think that not being fully your authentic self is ever going to harm anybody. It's doing everybody a favor. The other person doesn't have to like tiptoe around you. You don't have to like swallow your words and then pretend like you're not resentful when you are. Let's just be honest with who we are. It's so much more beautiful for everyone involved.
Yeah. I feel like you're I feel like you're really speaking to my soul, and I'm taking this on a lot because I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm too much, or I have like too much to say, or oftentimes I'm like, oh, is it worth bringing up? And I'll stuff it down because I'm like, I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable in the situation, or is this thing really that important? And so sitting here listening to you talk, I'm like reflecting on myself, being like, so I'm curious if you have anything to say on that. Like, is there ever a moment where it's not worth it?
I do hear two comments to that. One is when I heard you say, sometimes I think I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. Like Eleanor Roosevelt's famous quote, you can't make anyone feel uncomfortable without their consent. So if another woman feels uncomfortable, or another man, that's on them to do the further digging. Every time I feel contracted or triggered or insulted or whatever, that's on me to say, okay, what does that say about me? Do I believe that to be true? Is there maybe possibly more investigation for me to do around this thing? So often when I've been triggered, it's because I've been activated that for something to look deeper into myself. Every time it's like I'm learning more about who I am. And I really strongly want to urge us as women to stop babyfying each other and to stop thinking we have to wrap each other in swaddling and not have real hard conversations. It's not serving any of us. Tiptoeing around like, I don't want to hurt her feelings, or I don't want her to feel like I'm too much. And it's insulting to other women when we continue to do this, because nothing is going to change. We're going to stay in this really low vibration. It takes hard, big conversations to move any kind of a paradigm. So we have to get comfortable doing that. And secondly, is it not worth it? The only time it's not worth it is if it's like a really closed-minded, in the same way, like I had a really racist uncle. He's passed away now, but I wasn't going to try to convince him that my adopted children were as valuable humans as my biological children, right? Because it would have been a waste of my breath and air and time. But you know what I will do with that energy is I will turn to places and spaces where there's more open-heartedness and the possibility of a shift in mindset. But I'm not going to go in a corner and talk to one closed-minded racist who's going to be dead in a couple of years anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like, in those situations, it's like, where do I want to actually put the energy?
Yeah. Using your discernment in those moments. Yeah. I can't remember. I'm sitting here trying to place where I heard it, but basically one of the most feminine things you can do in a situation is voice what you're feeling and seeing in a moment, because by you not doing that, you're actually, like you said, harming everyone in the moment. So if you can see some way that things can be better, saying it is going to benefit everyone rather than holding it in, even though being afraid, you're afraid of hurting someone's feelings or making someone uncomfortable, or basically reflecting to them an area where they can like step up in their life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's always so beautiful. And one of the great conversation openers, I think, as well, is I use myself a lot in examples. Like if I'm going to bring up a subject that I know could be touchy or hard to receive, I will open it with giving an example of something I've been doing in my life. Like, I've been really curious about where my edge is in regards to XYZ, right? And so I will use my own lived experience as a conversation opener, because it's hard for people to be defensive and shut down around that. It usually is a beautiful way to open a conversation.
One of the things you said, a while back was you were talking about your intuition and how close you feel to your intuition now that you've embraced this part of yourself. What has that journey been like for you?
In regards to
learning to connect with your intuition, learning to hear it, what that feels like in your body, and how maybe you guide other people to be able to hear their own intuition.
Yeah, I don't think that you can actually connect to your intuition until you love yourself. And on the foundation of self-love, you start to build the walls of self-approval and self-trust and self-worth. And you have this entirely new house that your soulfulness is housed in. So we can't really get to intuition until we build self-love first, because you won't hear it. You won't even trust it. You'll gaslight yourself. So before we can talk about intuition, we have to go way back. We have to dial it way back to self-love. And I ask most of my clients, tell me about a woman that you know who is so profoundly grounded and integrated in her self-love. Tell me about her. And women say, I don't know a woman like that. Oh, did your mom demonstrate self-love? No, my mom didn't. So helping women awaken to the fact you're going to another country that speaks another language. You have no GPS, you have no map, you have no signs on the road, and you think you're going to find your hotel room. But you haven't done the pre-work to understanding the roadways there and the terrain. You haven't built the foundation of what it's going to take to navigate that. So it's the same with self-love. We can't navigate hearing and trusting and moving with our intuition until we've built the foundation of self-love. So we got to dial it way back.
And what does that look like when a client comes to you and you're like, this is where we're starting. We're starting with self-love. I mean, what are some of the first steps or exercises or practices that you lead them through?
Yes, I have a program that I've developed. It's 25 modules and videos that brings them through it, because I'll be honest with you, I am not a 1, 2, 3 girl. My work is deep, it is profound, and women who've spent 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years of their lives not loving themselves, it's not a 3-step program, right? It's really ancestral. It's really, really profound. So it would almost be insulting to my work to even try to share any of it right now. Like, here's the 3 steps, because, and I know you're not asking it in that way, but there are no 3 steps, to be quite honest with you. The very basic thing I can share would be, and again, I have only handfuls of women who have ever been brave enough to actually do this. And then what happens because of this is profound, but is to begin a mirror practice, a 90-day mirror practice of 3 minutes in the morning when you wake up. You don't even turn your phone on. You don't talk to anyone else. So you haven't yet, you're still in that sleepy, unconscious state. You haven't started to connect with the outside world. You take yourself to the mirror and you stand there in communion and reverence and honor of the spirit of you, and make eye contact. And it is not through language that is berating or belittling. It is just in reverence of what is. So rather than, because what happens is most women have never experienced being in a mirror that long. Most women have never stood and looked through their own eyes into their soul that long. And most women have never been in front of a mirror without belittling themselves or complaining or fixing or hiding something. So what happens to your nervous system after 90 days of doing that, and your cellular structure, is profound. It starts to reorganize itself through a lens of humanity rather than objectification.
You mentioned earlier also being a support system for the patriarchy. Are there any clues or obvious signs that you see in other women who are showing up that way and maybe don't realize it?
Yeah, I mean, in the midlife space right now, a lot of the women who are showing up, and it's not a bash, it's just a rally. I think a lot of them are either unconscious to it or they're complicit participants, because it's the only way to really find validation or voice, is that a lot of women in the midlife space are posing with all of their Botox, all of their filters on, and saying, this is the new 55. And I'm like, no, it's fucking not. That is not the new 55. You are posing like a 35-year-old, but you're playing by the patriarchal rules. So you're actually not doing anything revolutionary for yourself or any other woman. A 55-year-old woman, in fact, has lines. She has sunspots. Her skin's beginning to get crepey. That is revolutionary when you show up with no apology and no hiding, because these women who are doing that, I have a 21-year-old daughter, and she's like, Mom, it's so sad. We have no role models. There's nowhere to look. And she's like, I don't even, other than your face, Mom, none of my friends' moms have aging faces. You know, a lot of the friends that she has goes with the mom to get their Botox appointments, and they call it a spa day, a bonding spa day. She's like, there isn't representation. It's terrifying. Like, every woman is gripping her seat, terrified of aging. And it starts now in your 20s. I didn't even think about the conversation around aging didn't even begin in my circle until our 40s. I'm 51 now. To think that 20-year-olds are saying, don't sleep on your side, you'll cause chest wrinkles. Don't drink out of a straw, you'll get lip wrinkles. Don't get preventative Botox. What the hell is even that? All the things that my daughter tells me is going on in her world is mind blowing. It's actually devastating. Young women are missing their entire living of their beautiful life because they're worried about dying or looking older. Really, because what we have decided is that the only currency a woman really has, and you two are both, you know, so young, you won't recognize this yet, but you'll start to feel it when you get my age, that you'll start to notice that your currency is the youthfulness of your face. And when women have spent their entire life based on feeling good about themselves on how many male gazes they get and haven't built anything else, they start to feel unworthy. They start to feel invisible. So the natural thing is to keep chasing that dopamine hit, because you've grown up on that drug of thinking that's your value. And so when it starts to slip away, you will hold on to, and I don't mean you in particular, but a woman will hold on to it with a death grip, because she hasn't built any other meaning for her life other than the male gaze being the most important, because we still value men as the most important currency of our lives.
I'm so excited we're getting into this. This is actually the whole reason we wanted to have you on the podcast, and this conversation has been so beautiful, all these other topics that we're getting into, and I love it. But aging is really what we wanted to talk about and what we were excited to talk about, because there just aren't enough conversations about it. It's the conversations of how to stop aging, you know, health and wellness, how to look beautiful forever, you know, all of these conversations. But we're like, how do we bring up aging in a beautiful way, and in talking about the importance of it and
celebrating it.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get into that. I mean, what has that process been like for you, watching, you know, yourself go through that? Has that been like, you know, what you expected? Has it been something different from what you expected?
It's probably more powerful and sensual than I expected. You can't really feel deeply powerful and sensual when you're hiding or performing. You just can't. You can feel most powerful and most sensual when you are like, I am here. I am claiming it all. I am an open vessel. See me. There is no shame. The power that reverberates inside of my every step and every word is unlike any other phase of my life. And so I see it as something, you know, and it's interesting because childbirth, breastfeeding, a lot of natural parenting, a lot of the decisions I've made in my life have been really different narratively than my counterparts. And so I also think there's something to the way I decide to view the world, the way I architect my life and what I make things mean. I don't make aging mean a failure. Notice how when we talk about aging, we're actually only talking about women.
Yeah.
This conversation doesn't happen with men.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the silver fox. There isn't even an inverse term for like a woman. We have silver fox for men, but there's no term, maybe spinster, single cat lady. Um, I don't know if there's a beautiful word for a woman who has gone silver or who is letting herself display her aging. And so I don't see it as a failure. I'm insulted by that storyline. I'm insulted by brands that say anti-aging, that they would come for women like that. I think it's pitiful. And so I'm immune to all of it because I don't give my power to toxic beauty culture. My power is in here. And so every time I open my pocketbook, if I pay the system of toxic beauty culture, I lose my power. And so I have so many better things to do with my life than worry about how many sunspots I have on my face. I have a global message to help change things for the sake of my daughter and every woman her age. So, I put my power into creating a new narrative rather than worrying about how I look.
Yeah.
It's really the least interesting thing about me. These are some genetics that came together. I had nothing to do with. The most beautiful thing for me now, and why I see myself now as more beautiful than I ever have, is because of the level of my soulfulness and my purpose that I wake up with every day. To me, that is the greatest turn on of my life.
Yeah. When you were first talking about aging and 20-year-olds and, you know, the things your daughter has been sharing with you, I got emotional because I'm like, it is crazy. It really is, like, reflecting on the way we view ourselves or like the way we talk about ourselves. And even if you say it in like a joking way, it's still coming from somewhere. And why is that? And I just turned 30 and I feel the most alive, the most turned on to life, the most engaged with life. Like, my life is so beautiful. I feel the healthiest I've ever been, internally. And then externally, I still feel that like I'm not 20 anymore. And I don't know why I feel that way. You know, like, I look back and I'm like, oh, look how young I was. And it's like finding that programming within myself and like really sitting with it. And you know, I don't really know what to do with it at this point, but I am aware that it's happening on a daily basis. And, you know, it happens in conversations.
You know what you can do with it? If I can interject, what I would love, and it's good for the listeners, you know what you can do with it is you can be insulted and enraged.
Yeah.
You put more energy and time looking in the rearview mirror than in the present mirror. Not even the future, but the present right now, because all the time we spend there in regret or longing or wishing or wondering how I can make it this now look more like that. Be enraged that you're even part of a system that would tell you that the aging of your face is somehow a failure or a loss. Like, be enraged by that and use that fuel to keep you one step at a time moving forward. Because it's how we, the patriarchy infantilizes women. It's really sick if you think about it. So the younger you look, the more, it's porn culture and pedophilia, and it's all kinds of weakness. Let's just be real honest for a moment, right? The younger you are, the more naive you are, the less you're going to be more easily impressed by the little things. You're probably more likely to be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. No, that's no problem. You might think you're more of a cool girl, which there's no such thing as a cool girl anyways, because we all actually care about things that when we care about someone. And so what happens is with every decade that passes, you get so incredibly potent. And your holy hell yes becomes non-negotiable. And that is what the patriarchy fears. They fear those potent as fuck women who are done playing games, who are not easily impressed in the bedroom or in the boardroom, who ask for what they really want. And they don't just like bat their eyelashes and be like, oh my God, no, that's cute. That's fine. You don't do that anymore when you reach my age. And that is what we're afraid of. We are afraid of the ushering of truth. And so that's why older men turn towards younger women, because they, it's this like daughter figure. If you really deconstruct it, it's quite disturbing, which is a whole nother, deeper conversation for probably a different episode. But so when you really start excavating, like keep excavating and excavating, and there's rage first, but you will hit gold. There is beauty and gold in there if you're willing.
Yeah. I mean, I would like you to touch on that because it is something that I have been witnessing just as I've grown into adulthood, is the fascination with youth in our culture and pedophilia and all of that, how deeply rooted our culture is in that. So if you could speak on that for a second, I'd be interested in listening.
It's about domination, right? It's domination culture, it's power culture. It is the extracting and fracking from you what I so need and desire to feel worthy, to feel more powerful. So I think that, when we see Leonardo DiCaprio at 49 dating a 19-year-old, it for me, if it's almost feels hard to watch. It feels hard to watch because listen, I mean, maybe they have all kinds of incredible commonalities in conversation, probably fairly unlikely. At 19, you just haven't lived enough life to actually have had life experiences to speak to. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with her. I'm just saying in reality, we see that probably the disconnect there, but nobody really seems to bat an eye at it. It's quite normal. And I think until we start calling that out more often, nothing's going to change. But when we look at the fact that 90%, this is data, this is the most updated data, I just included it in my book, upcoming book, that 90% of movie directors are men. So 90% of the time you are being entertained, you're being entertained through one lens, the male lens. And so they can only tell a story about the female experience through their limited experience. They've never been women last time I checked. So we are inundated everywhere about messages that the leading character is typically, he can be an older man, but then the younger woman comes along, or the women that are in the movie, their greatest role is a support to the lead, or they're scurrying around seeking really cheap love. Right. So we don't have examples over and over again of powerful, strong female leaders, even on the big screen. So we, in our unconscious mind, when we think we're clicking back to watch a Netflix episodes, we're going to binge it, or we're going to the movies to see the next new, blockbuster. What in fact we're doing is we're just continuing to lay the railroad tracks of that messaging over and over and over again, that the men can be older, but the women can't. The men can be powerful, but the women can't. The men can be the main character, but the woman can't. All of these over and over. And then it makes sense why we can justify it in our lived life and realities.
Yeah, this is all hitting hard right now. I'm just like processing all of it. I'm like, everything you're saying is so true. And it's so unconscious that until you call it out, you almost don't even notice it because it's so ingrained in our society. It's wild.
Yeah, I don't know.
Think about this. My daughter, I'm going to do a podcast episode on mine with her about this. She brings up the most incredible conversation. She's been on a few of my episodes. And one of the things she said to me the other day, she's like, Mom, if you opened up your Spotify list, your playlist, do you have songs by men and women? I was like, oh, yeah. She said, do you think you have more men or more women? Now, I'm probably a little bit of an anomaly. I have primarily, and that's very conscious, female artists. Like I really listen to female artists. But she was having a conversation with a group of guy friends and girlfriends, all in their early 20s. She had everybody open their Spotify list. And it turned out most of the men's Spotify list, so the women had a pretty good balance. They had male and female artists. And the guys opened their Spotify list. They had primarily male artists that they listened to. And maybe sometimes a woman was like in a duet with a guy there that they listened to, right? And then she asked them, she took a random poll. She's like, so how many of you guys who's your favorite female artist? And they couldn't name one. And she's like, so would you guys all go to would you call a bunch of your guy friends and be like, hey, let's go see, I don't know, let's just, Beyonce. Would you go see you? Because she looked at her boyfriend. She's like, you love Beyonce. He's like, oh my God, yeah. She goes, do you have any of her songs on your playlist? He's like, no. Would you call all of your friends if Beyonce was going to be a couple miles down the street of where you live and say, hey guys, let's get tickets and go? He's like, no. She goes, now what about us? And she did it to the women. She's like, how many times do we go to concerts of just male singers? How many times are we rocking out in our cars or at the gym just listening to male singers? And everybody was like floored. So something that simple, we even put the power in music is still in the hands of men. Like men would hardly ever, straight men would hardly ever be caught dead at a female concert. You wouldn't see a group of guys being like, hey, let's go to a Taylor Swift concert. But you better believe you'd see a group of women going to, a male artist concert. So when you really start to break it down, you just notice that conditioning is everywhere.
Yeah. I'm getting very activated in my body where I'm shaking.
Good.
And I'm just kind of sitting with it. It almost feels like I have like the shivers, but I'm not cold. My whole body is just kind of like vibrating right now. And then I'm having like memories of like being 7 and being in like first grade and being in group settings where like the boys talk and the girls don't really talk because what a girl has to say, even at that age, like isn't important or is just girly and it's stupid and it's not valued. Anyway, that just came up for me and I'm just sitting here, I'm just kind of letting it be, but it's very interesting. And I really hope that this conversation is like hitting other women the same way. Because it's taken me my entire life to get to the point where I value what I say. I know my perspective is important and it's different. And luckily I was raised by parents who like celebrated that and helped me cultivate that. But yeah, it's very emotional.
It's very emotional. And I'm so happy that you're reverberating because that means the parts of you that maybe were thawed or numb are coming back alive and you're remembering. Every time I'm in a room and women are crying or women are nodding their heads, I have full body chills right now. It's because we're remembering. We're remembering it was supposed to be more beautiful. It was remembering that we too have something really important to offer to every conversation, every space, every home, every community, every church. And I think there's like such a sadness in there as well. And when you get through the sadness, you'll feel the fury. And that's where I want women to connect because it's through the fury that the greatest changes happen for us. Because we say, I won't be silenced anymore. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? We're bringing up all these truths, and I know for a fact people that are listening are going to resonate with this. All these feelings are coming up, emotions. So how do we channel this energy in a positive way?
You spend every day of your life and all circumstances. And this doesn't have to even, as I say this, I want to also preface it by saying this quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes right now, work gets to be really beautiful. I have communities and spaces where we have really hard, earth-shattering conversations on the daily. We do this. These are the conversations we're having, right? But we get to do it because we are claiming more. It gets to be insanely beautiful. So I overload everything with pleasure. We're doing this and we're reclaiming it all in pleasure, right? So the work is excavation every day. Excavating everything, excavating and asking yourself questions. Like, I won't bring into my home a product that has the words anti on it. We wouldn't make a product that says anti-fat cream. We just wouldn't, but we have no problem saying anti-aging cream. Why would I want to anti-age? Why wouldn't I? So what was that message? I'm not putting anything on my body that's telling me I have to anti anything. So even something that simple, like excavating for the truth of all of those things and cleaning up like what you take in. When my daughter was 15, we sat down together and for every social media account she was following, I said to her, tell me why you're following that account. So listeners can do this as well. Every time you're following an account, does it inspire you? Does it like turn on some greatness in you? Does it make you think bigger than you've ever thought? Does it expand your consciousness? If it doesn't do those things, don't follow the account. If you are spending your time scrolling on Netflix, watching things like that, these reality shows where women are tearing each other down and treating each other horribly, don't be surprised if you don't trust other women because you're feeding your mind messaging that women can't be trusted, right? So clean up your digital life, clean up the creams and the toxins you bring into your life. Like, be aware and mindful. I have so many women telling me like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize, Amanda, until you pointed out all the things that I was like lathering on myself or the Botox injections, all of that stuff. Women are like, oh my gosh, my hormones are so whacked out. And I'm like, tell me, look, I want you to do like a thorough inventory over the next 10 days. Really pay attention to everything you physically put in your body, everything you lather onto yourself, every appointment you've made in the sake of or name of beauty. And let's really start, if you want me to help you, start unearthing that. And we clean up their entire lives. I'm like, okay, right. Your hormones are wackadoodle-doo because all those toxins you're lathering that are going into your bloodstream and all those things you're injecting are endocrine disruptors. So of course your whole system's whack. And now you've got to get on something else to try to balance that out. Now you've lost this thing, and now you're going to, then you take an antidepressant, and then you've lost your libido. So now you've got to take something to bring that back. And oh my gosh, it's like, let's start excavating everything that we take in mentally, that we put onto our physical bodies, that we ingest, and even music, like looking at all of it. And my gosh, this work is so deep. I even help women reprogram everything is in regards to sex and self-pleasure, because for most women that I've worked with, there's a lot of unconscious porn programming running in their head. It's keeping them very far away from their sacredness and their partner.
And what does that look like? Like what is porn programming?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it is the baseline would be, you feel like you have to be in a performance to please this person, right? You're worried about the angle that you're at. You're making sounds that are not actually real orgasm sounds that a woman makes, because orgasm sounds are deep and guttural, and there's like a animalistic moan that comes from them. It has nothing to do with the throat chakra, everything from like the pussy and the womb space. It is, you can convince yourself that you like certain things that you actually don't, because women too have been so damaged by porn culture. And women, I ask so often when women are like, yeah, so my partner really wants to like have a threesome. And they're like, I'm kind of turned on by it too. I'm like, oh yeah, tell me more about that. And I'm like, so with another man? And they're like, oh my God, no, not another man, another woman. I'm like, oh, well, how did you guys get there? Oh, well, my God, we would never bring in another man. Okay, let's break that down. So women have deluded themselves and convinced themselves. I'm like, you wouldn't want to have, if you could have a threesome and have it your way, you wouldn't want two men adorning you and pleasuring you from the tips of your toes all the way to the crown and the back of your neck and every single delicious part of your body. You wouldn't want two men worshiping you for hours. And they're like, yeah, I would want that. Okay, we'll pay attention to that, because women have also convinced themselves like, oh no, like women are just more beautiful, women are softer. And that again is the conditioning. That's porn culture. That what women, when you really start to dissect it and break it down, so much of what they think they believe is not even their belief. They've just absorbed it from the patriarchal messaging.
How do we start to deconstruct that?
I have had women go back to their partner and be like, I know that you're really like wanting to engage in a threesome. I am super down for it. And one of the things I was thinking about was, I kind of have a look I was even thinking about. And he would probably be like 6'5"-ish, really broad and muscular. And then when he reacts, and he's like, oh no, I wasn't talking about another guy. Then you have a situation where you can be like, oh, okay, let's unpack this. That's so interesting that you made the assumption that it would be another woman. What would make you think I would want to do that? And why would it be okay that we would bring another woman into the bedroom, but not another man? Right? Help them deconstruct that. Help them to understand where you're coming from. The man bear conversation that was going around on TikTok a couple of weeks ago, use that as a litmus test. If I was single, it would be the litmus test I would be using as to whether or not we were having a second coffee date. Because if I brought that up and the man got defensive or thought it was weird, rather than lean in and be curious that so many women pick the bear, I would know that this isn't a man I would ever want to have another conversation with, because I'm interested in men who lean in with curiosity. Not who put up the walls of defensiveness. So that's where you can begin to deconstruct in your own, relationships that you're currently in.
How can men support women as we navigate like reclaiming our power?
I guess the best way is knowing that the patriarchy has hurt everybody. The patriarchy does not just hurt women, it hurts men as well. I have 3 young adult sons, and we talk extensively about the damage that patriarchy has done for them. And so being able to open conversations to say, hey, I just want to name and recognize that just as much as patriarchy has hurt me, I know it's hurt you too. And I want to build a bridge towards you. And so the only way that I know how to best do that is speak in every space and place that happens and comes up for me that feels where I can tell my truth to you. And I want to take you inside and help you understand why this feels hurtful or alarming or contractive to me. And I want you to do the same. So we can't expect men to show up differently only for us and not also show up differently for themselves. Because if we really want to do this, then we have to be able to let men be in spaces and places inside of their feelings. And, because I hear a lot of women who want this like typical masculine, yet they don't want him to be too emotional. They don't want him to share his real feelings. So we kind of can't have it all. So if we really want them to understand us, we have to be willing to understand the inner workings of what their experiences are.
I'd be curious to know, you mentioned TikTok, and I don't know if you're aware of like the trad wife culture on TikTok, what your take is on that. Because I don't even know how to navigate the feelings towards it. You just kind of witness it, and things with social media, like you said, like looking at a creator and asking yourself, how does this make me feel? And if it feels good, then great, embrace it. And if it makes you feel unworthy or not good enough, and I'd have to say like that content, as someone who looks forward to being a mother in my life, like, and embracing those parts of myself, but not, I don't know if I'm articulating this right, but like looking at content like that and being like, that's your only value. This is where you are valued most. And I know for some women, maybe that is where they feel really called to show up, but I'd be curious to have you kind of talk on the culture of like that content.
How to not lose yourself in that, even if that is something you feel really called to do.
Yeah. Or just kind of what you think of that content of women. Because I look at that, and some of the women I see, I feel like are very repressed still.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
First, I will say that I'm pretty certain, I would put money on it, that they're all being paid by their religions to revamp this and bring this back. It's just another, it's not even a subliminal programming. It's a pretty forward-facing programming, but I'm pretty certain, I've had conversations with people who believe the same, that they're being paid by their religions, and supported to run those accounts. They probably have producers at their homes, because I'm a mom of 4. I raised 4 of my own, and no one's baking bread fresh every day in a beautiful dress with their hair and their makeup done, with a spotless kitchen and their mixing bowl. I've been there, done that, and it's not reality. So someone's got the camera, they've got all the right lighting, everything's pre-mixed, and they've got a babysitter in the other room with the kids that are already born. I mean, so don't believe any of it. In the same way that when I was a new mom and Pinterest was a brand new thing, and I would go to Pinterest for like Halloween to like get some craft ideas, I'd go to the Michael's, we'd buy all the crafts. Ours would look nothing like it. I would feel so defeated, like the biggest loser mom in the whole world, that I was probably going to ruin my kids. They were never going to be artistic. And Halloween was awful because it was just another place that I couldn't be successful. And then eventually I decided, but you know where I am really successful? I'm really successful when we pop a bowl of popcorn and we sit on the floor in a circle and we talk about like what hurts our heart. And what I'm really successful about is teaching them how to write love letters to each other on their birthdays and then read them out loud. And we've been doing that for almost 18 years now, and starting traditions that are of the heart and soul. I'm really good at that. I don't know how to decorate a pumpkin great, but guess what? I could cry right now. My kids turned out unbelievable. And I never knew how to decorate the best for a holiday. I was never a great baker or a great cooker, but I gave them my heart. And that's all that mattered. That's all that mattered. I was present with my soulfulness. I taught them how to be soulful. And so I just want to say, like, follow your own, again, that instinct of what feels right for me to be a mother. I think we all have to stop saying that this is what success gets to look like. Mine was very unique and very different. We never put our kids in a lot of sports because I felt like, especially in America, you're having your kid in endless sports. I understood, number one, again, I excavated for this, right? I understood this is a business. This is a business. The more things my kids sign up for that I pay for, and then they all tell you, you've got a real superstar on your hands. Oh, I think they need some privates on a Saturday morning. Next thing you know, everybody in the neighborhood, their kid is the next superstar. And now not only are they going to all of their organized sports that you pay for, now they're getting all these professional side lessons that you're paying insane money for. And I was watching all of these people in my neighborhoods do these things. And my husband and I were practically on the verge of divorce because 4 kids, he traveled Monday through Friday around the world. All we did was get in 2 separate cars and drive kids to different activities and call that a family life. And I said, no, I want to be in the backyard on Saturday playing in the sandbox. I want to pack up our car and drive an hour to the beach and get lost and not even get lost digging and playing and sandwiches and sand everywhere. So I had to really deconstruct that. I was kind of the weirdo mom because I took my kids, I'm like, everybody can pick one thing. Just one thing, because guess what? Less than 1% of kids ever go on to be professional athletes. And when people talk about, oh, but it's a great place for them to learn how to be a team player. My kids learned how to be a team player in the four walls of our home. Everybody had their part and everybody played their roles in supporting each other emotionally, helping to keep the house clean, helping to clean up with whatever was going on with the four dogs. That's where they learned how to be a team player. So you get to decide, but it is going to require you to excavate. And often, if you play by the patriarchy, you're going to miss some of the most beautiful moments of your human life.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's all about just coming back to your truth, no matter what you're talking about. It's like, what is true for you at the end of the day, despite what society says that you should be doing?
Yeah. One last thing I'm very curious about that I'd love for you to touch on is women in business and how we can show up in the boardroom or in any place of business, but as a woman and what that looks like. And maybe that doesn't look like what it's been in the past, and how we can evolve into embracing ourselves in these positions.
Yeah, I think the way that we evolve into embracing these positions is speaking that as we excavate for things is speaking those messages, not speaking the message that the patriarchy is already running, because nothing's really changing for women. We still have just a few token women at the board tables. We still have very few female CEOs of Fortune 500s. We also, I had a woman recently obviously I have a global following, but even my clients are from all over the world. And I was hosting a session a couple of months ago, and one of the women who was in one of my lower ticket offers but wanted to upgrade to something else was saying to me, like, well, can you give discounts? Can you give this? And I said, no, I can't. But here's what I can tell you is that my TikTok and my YouTube channel and my Instagram are free platforms. So buy yourself a beautiful journal and use every single piece of content as your mastermind of the day. So you watch that 90-second or that 3-minute piece of content, open your journal. What did you hear? What did you see? What did you learn? How can you align that more in your life? What can you make changes of? There's so much free content, but what I won't do is I won't insult how hard I have worked to be at this level of mastery to give away my work for free, other than those platforms. I have a podcast. I have so many free sources, and I have all kinds of different tiers of what I charge, right? And so I think also charging what feels, again, if you don't have a sense of self-worth, you're not going to charge what you think is in alignment to who you are and what you're offering. But I believe that a lot of this work has to be an investment. Otherwise, people don't take it as seriously either to engage in the work. So, and that's in the coaching perspective. But I really do think it's about, I had so many clients over the years who say to me, I'm really due for a raise at the place that I'm working. I said, okay, well, go in and ask for it. Right? I can't ask for it. We craft the message, they go in 9 times out of 10, every time a woman is given the raise that she asked for. And so then I tell her, okay, and next year you're going to go back and ask again. And then eventually she gets pissed off that she even has to ask. And then she finds a more aligned place to work for where she never has to ask for a raise again because it's just given to her. So it's really helping women because you don't want to be working in a place that doesn't honor and value you either. So if you go and ask for the raise that you are due for and they say no, it's time to reevaluate how they really value you.
One thing that came up for me, or for both of us, is knowing your worth and charging for your time, your energy, your products, whatever it may be, and watching male counterparts do the same thing without even blinking an eye. And then for us, it being one of the things that we struggle with most is charging for our time, our value, our content, our products, whatever it may be. And why there's that disconnect or there's that struggle of accepting money as a woman.
Almost like a level of guilt of asking for something.
Yeah.
Even though it's reciprocal.
Right. And, when you look at, even when my kids were little, if I volunteered for like a school party or something, the volunteers and listen, we divide it however we have to divide it in families, but you rarely saw a man there volunteering. Right. And so the storyline that we keep perpetuating is even the volunteer world is run by women. We don't see, so if women just stopped volunteering, we'd have no volunteering left. I'm not necessarily suggesting that happen. Maybe like men start participating some, and getting in touch with that part of their hearts. But what I do see is everywhere there's the storyline of just give it away for free. I mean, my God, give your body away for free. You go, out to dinner, he buys you a steak, and now you think you have to sleep with him? Like you're afraid, like you're going to lead him on because he bought you a glass of wine and a steak that now you owe him something. It's like, no, we don't owe anybody anything. As a matter of fact, like you're lucky that you got to have conversation with me tonight. Like that's the energy I want women to be in, right? And like, what a privilege that you get to work with me. And here are my rates. I'm non-negotiable on my rates. I just am. And I said to that woman, she asked that question in front of a few hundred women. And I said, I'm curious, would you have asked that to a man? And she was like, she didn't have an answer. We have no problem asking a woman to give her stuff away for free, but we would most likely never ask a man because we value and respect men and their work more than we respect and value women.
Yeah. And then I also, reflecting on this too, I'm like, also, I think we view money as a inherently masculine, or like it's the conduit in which we give and take services and in the patriarchy. So it's like, it's inherently masculine, and having to deconstruct that within myself as, a feminine woman, but also who has businesses and is self-made, what that looks like. I still am navigating that.
And the way I also approach it is, the more money I make, and I love money, I love wealth, I love power, and I'm not going to apologize for any of it. The more I make, the more it magnifies who I am. Because if you are inherently good, money is a magnifier of your goodness. And if you are inherently evil, money will magnify your evilness. So I know and trust and believe that I've always had a great responsibility with what I do with my business and my money. And I know that's why the universe keeps showing up in the way that it does, because this is not coming from a place of ego. It's coming from a place of reach. Right? So the more money I make, the more I can do, the more I can reach the women of the world. So being intentional about why I'm calling in more, why I'm womanifesting more in all the ways, financially and with reach, because with that more, I can do more, I can reach further. So I think being super aligned in the intention behind why I want more money. I don't want more money just for the sake of padding at my bank account more. I want it because I know the depths that I can go in the world with this message. If there's more, I can hire even more women on my team, which gives more women. We have a team of 5 right now, but what about when we have a team of 20 and 30? That's that many more women that get to not only just be in this messaging every day, but also being able to provide for themselves financially and break and change legacy stories for themselves.
Yeah. So seeing money as like a neutral, energetic, I don't know why, and it may just be me, but I have grown up seeing money, which is interesting because my mom, was the breadwinner of our family for a long time. But I don't know why I have this programming where I'm like, money is masculine and I don't want to be masculine. So then I block myself from making money, if that makes sense.
But you are part, you're both, right? Like I am very heavy in my masculine. I have to work harder at getting into my feminine because I naturally have run, because of protective mechanisms of abandonment in childhood, I run more masculine, right? But when I'm in my feminine, oh my God, it's wild. Like it is insane surrender. But we are part masculine and part feminine. You need both. And so the dance is that beautiful tango of your masculine and feminine dancing and knowing when one needs to lead on the dance floor versus the other. That is the mastery of infusing them together. So masculine also doesn't mean negative, and money doesn't have to be just masculine. Like, oh my gosh, it just gets to be this if you receive money and this receivership and this flow, even every time I write a check for people who work for me, I mean, I don't physically write checks anymore, but every time the money is going out, I am not releasing it like, oh God, there goes another $10,000 payment. There goes another, getting a little tight here. Or every time it's like, thank you for this blessing of having this kind of abundance to bring this kind of team onto my platform. It's even, we are able to receive money in the same way we are able to give money. So I give money so abundantly and so graciously and open-heartedly and with so much joy. And that's the same way I receive money. So play with the energetics around how you give it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we've just fought our masculine for a long time. And that's something we're coming back into, is realizing that is such a huge part of who we are and embracing that and not seeing it as a bad thing.
Because when we first met, we bonded over the fact that we have the same work ethic. We both have a desire to be self-made. I've looked my entire life for another woman who I can connect with on this level. And so her and I found that. And then through, I don't know, just conversation or women kind of living that more traditional, like we were talking, that trad wife kind of vibe, I'm like, oh, the way I am isn't how a woman should be. And so now recently re-embracing who we were, when we first met as individuals, and kind of coming back to that and being like, no, that is who I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to show up this way.
That's our superpower.
You better believe it, because without the masculine, without the structure, we wouldn't all be on this call right now. Right? If I was just like, oh no, I think today I'm going to like walk over to the beach and I'm just going to be in my like feminine energy. I'm just like not going to even open my email. I wouldn't have seen that there was a, the Zoom link or the whatever. It's like, no, the masculine is what has built my entire business. That hustle in me, God, I love that part of her. I love my work ethic. I love my fierceness. I love the way I show up and protect the women in my world so much. But I also love the softness in me, and I love the tenderness. And it's erotic. It's so erotic when you find that place on the dance floor and you're in step from one to the other. And eventually it gets to a point, it isn't even like a light switch. It's not like, okay, I'm going to block in my feminine practice time. It's like, I get to be in all of it. I get to be in this. And before I transition to my next thing, I'll put on a song, I'll burn some incense, I'll run my hands through my hair, I'll dance for 3 minutes, and I'll be in such awe of myself. And then I'll be like, okay, back to my next, back down to my desk.
Oh my God,
right?
amazing.
We get to do it all.
Well, I feel like it really comes full circle, because as you're saying that, I admire you and I look up to you, and I think you are just so beautiful and magnetic, and such a beautiful example of what we can all become if we really do the deep work, and kind of like what the other side looks like. And as you're saying that, I relate to it so much, because maybe not on that exact level, and I will do the work because I want to be there. But like, I know that feeling of being so in awe with myself on the inside and how beautiful I feel. And so learning to, and working with and practicing loving myself as I am now and not looking back, like you said, I think that's one of like something that will catapult me into the woman I want to be, by not looking back and striving to be something I used to be. Because like you were saying, I feel so whole now, and I'm so in awe of the things that I've built and I'm so proud of her. So really just celebrating the present version of myself. Yeah.
And that is what is going to take you all the way through for each decade, right? It's not like we arrive at a certain point of life and we're like, okay, now I'm going to turn on the self-honor. Excuse me. It's building that now, that foundation now, and just layering it with everything and over time. So when you arrive into your 50s and beyond, and the world is different to women at that age, you're not scrambling in that fear, because you've already built the foundation of this beautiful self-worth inside.
Well, this has been just such a beautiful conversation. I loved how it evolved. I mean, we talked about so many amazing topics. I feel like later today, I'm just going to be like integrating these things in and thinking about what we talked about. One question we do love to ask our guests at the end is, what do you feel your purpose is in this life?
My purpose is inspiring women of your age to dream bigger about what being a woman gets to be and not falling for this very limited and very insulting storyline that says it is just the youthfulness of our skin and the tightness of our skin. So that's really what I'm here for. I'm here to cast this net very, very wide around the world. And it's happened already. So, and it's going to keep happening. And my purpose is to keep growing into this so women can keep watching. And that's my promise to both of you. That is my promise to my daughter and all young women is like, I promise you that you will always have someone to look to when you forget what it means to age and be safe and okay and beautiful and amazing. I'll be there. And I'm going to grow all the way into my crone in front of the world because I want women to feel like they have a safe space and permission. We need more role modeling for that.
Yeah, you really are such a beautiful example and so inspiring to just watch you speak. And like you said, you're so magnetic and I can just feel your energy. So this has been really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for having me.
Yes. Yes. So for anyone who wants to work with you, follow your journey, or just connect, how can they do so?
The best place is on social media. It's Midlife Muse. And then my website is my name, Amanda Hanson, HANSON.com. And interestingly, it's funny that you both use the word magnetic because I have a live event in Phoenix, Arizona in November for 1,000 women that is called Magnetic. It's a 2-day women's only event with 1,000 women. So get your tickets to come and have really all of this in a group of 1,000 women with so much activation, so many breakout sessions. It's going to blow everybody's hearts wide open.
Yeah, this amplified like by 1,000, I'm sure. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.